Now, my biggest gripe about this entire thing has nothing to do with the story at all. It's the 3D animation. I can't stand it, man. I can't stand it. It looks so weird to me. It's off-putting. It just looks wonky in certain parts, especially like the action sequences. It just looks weird. It looks like everybody's moving in slow-mo, and then if you look in the background, you got some people animated in 2D animation, but everybody in the forefront that's moving is animated in 3D animation. It just looks weird when you could have just did everything in 2D animation and possibly saved yourself some money. And it would have looked way cleaner and crisper.
Whole team got the glow. You can see it in the stride. Got me feeling brand new. Feeling brand new. Feeling brand new. Feeling brand new. Got me feeling brand new. Feeling brand new. Feeling brand new. Feeling brand new. Yeah.
What up, YouTube? It's your boy JusRzd, and welcome to another edition of Ray's Reviews. Today, we're actually reviewing the first 2 episodes of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Not gonna hold you. We gotta talk about this. We gotta talk about this. We gotta talk about this because, man, in certain ways, I get what they're doing and don't have a problem with it. I actually think it's pretty interesting the way they're trying to build this out. For me personally, I ain't feeling this animation, man. I'm just not. I'm not feeling the 3D animated depiction of these characters that they're going for. It's not even the characters. So let me backtrack. I see what they're attempting to do, and I appreciate that. Like, throughout both of these first 2 episodes, we get a solid look at the world that Peter Parker is going to be in, how it's very different, but even though it's very different, it's still similar to the MCU, but we see that it's very different as far as just the people, the creatures, the events, even though there are similar events to this Peter Parker's journey to the Peter Parker we got in Homecoming and Civil War, we still see the differences in how he got to those particular points. And it's interesting. It's interesting from that aspect because it's like they give you just enough to be like, hold on, that Peter did that, except it was somebody else. Or Peter did this. I remember when he did that. He did that in Civil War. And but it's different enough to be like, oh yeah, he still did the same event, but different consequences, different stakes, different people were also involved. And so I kind of appreciate that, especially when we're talking about the multiverse. I really kind of appreciate that nod and ode to what they already created and just showing you the differences and variations of it. I know certain people are sick of the multiverse saga at this particular point. A lot of people kind of tapped out at their Endgame, and I'm not necessarily mad at that. At the end of the day, your preference is your preference. I ain't mad at it. My issue comes when people decide to call stuff trash and they're not even watching it. Like, people always, I hear a huge sounding board on the internet talking about how Marvel has been trash since Endgame, and then when you ask those people, you be like, well, what projects or movies have you seen since Endgame? And they give you like 3 or 4. It's like, bruh, you can't say that everything was trash when you didn't watch it. Like, that's not how that works. Oh, that was trash, but you never listened. That song was trash, but I never actually listened. You can't say that. You can't say that. Same way you can't criticize Marvel for the projects that they put out when you're not watching them. Now, one thing I will say is there is a massive... I'm going to save that for a different video. Because we're here to talk about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I can go on a tangent talking about Marvel. As you can tell, big Marvel fan. Started with the X-Men animated series in the 90s, then the Spider-Man one in the 90s. And yeah, I've just been in love with Marvel ever since. I ain't gonna hold you. Big Marvel fan. But I can acknowledge and recognize that they've had several misses. Not just in the Multiverse Saga, but also in the Infinity Saga. But oh, how quickly we forget. Anyway, this episode, the first episode, starts off with... It starts off, we see Peter getting up. He's about to be late for his orientation at school. He's a freshman, of course, because remember, originally this was called Spider-Man Freshman Year. But since they changed it and made it more multiverse-esque, it's now called Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which I'm fine with. So he gets to his orientation. He tries to get up. May tries to wake him up and make sure he gets there on time. He misses the train because he's rushing, and you know Peter Parker's notoriously late in the comics. So we see him miss the train and he's dejected. He doesn't have any powers at this point, but he's just like, man, I'm gonna be late on my first day. And so May pulls up. She's like, yo, you need a ride? He was like, but wait, you gonna be late for work? And she's like, man, we both finna be late. So one of us is gonna have to be late. Either it's gonna be me or you. And since it's your first day, I figure you shouldn't be late, so you should be on time. So she takes him to school. When they pull up to the school, a portal opens up above the school, and trying to see how I can describe this. A Venom-esque creature falls out. It has like the face of Venom, but it has like the body of something else. So a Venom-esque creature falls out, and Doctor Strange falls out right behind him. And we see pretty much this creature and Doctor Strange just kind of going at it. And one thing, I'll touch on this after I go through these episodes. So they're fighting, they're going through the school, fighting each other, and eventually Doctor Strange is able to pretty much subdue the Venom-esque creature and take him back out the portal. And as he's leaving with the Venom-esque creature, a spider drops down from the Venom-esque creature and lands on Peter. And he starts to talk to Nico, who was introduced right before the fight happened. And if you're familiar with any of Marvel's TV projects before they owned everything, before Disney owned everything like Fox and all that stuff, they had a show called Runaways. If you watch Runaways, which I know most people didn't, it was on Hulu, but it was a group of kids. One of the kids was a girl named Nico who was into magic. And so now we actually have Nico in this show. So I think that's kind of dope to have that character and pull that particular character out and drop her in this universe as well. So I thought that was pretty cool. But we see Peter kind of saved her in the midst of the fight between the Venom-esque creature and Doctor Strange. He kind of got the Venom-esque creature who was about to attack her, well, about to unalive her, really. At least that's what it looked like. He pretty much started throwing bricks at the creature to deter him, and the creature pretty much threw Nico out the way, and then Doctor Strange was able to subdue him. And so, of course, he's talking to Nico, making sure she's good. She's trying to make sure he's good. Then he gets bit by the spider and passes out. And so then we pick up and we see some time has passed from pretty much his first day at orientation to current day. And we see he now has the Spider-Man fit. He has the abilities and the powers and stuff like that. And we see him still missing the train. still late for the train, but he puts on a Spider-Man outfit and he makes his way to school, ends up saving a few people on the way, and one of the people that he ends up saving just so happens to be Harry Osborn. It looks like Harry Osborn was about to get jumped by 3 dudes, and he ends up beating up all 3 dudes, of course webbing them to like a light pole, saying what's up to their followers and subscribers on their live, and then proceeds to go to school. And that was pretty much all Harry really did. And then we just kind of see a day in the life of Peter for like the first half of the episode. And we just see him go to school. We see him run into his crush, Paula. And we see him just kind of having a dialogue with Nico, like, yo, because Paula and Nico are cool. And everybody kind of is fawning, even Nico. Everybody's kind of fawning over Paula. She's like the bee's knees or the cat's meow. I just felt like saying something super old, but so he's kind of talking out his frustrations with Nico, and she's like, well, you better hurry up and ask her out before somebody else beats you to it. And he's just like, what? Somebody's gonna try to beat me to it? And and so he ends up having to leave in the middle of class because he sees that there is a robbery, and that's where we get the scene. It really looked like a high-speed chase after a robbery, but that's where we get the scene that's similar to the scene in Civil War when Iron Man pretty much shows Tom Holland that he knows that he's Spider-Man. He's like, this is you? And he shows him like stopping a car from hitting a bus. We actually get the lead up to that sequence and that entire sequence in that shot, which was actually pretty cool to see that similarity and see that that's kind of how it started. Was actually kind of cool. And then by the time he gets back to school and he's like, all right, I'm gonna muster up enough confidence. I'm cool. I'm gonna go ask Paula out. And Nico kind of pulls him to the side and is like, you're kind of too late. And it looks like the star football player, the jock, I believe his name is Lincoln, or Lonnie. Yeah, Lonnie Lincoln. And pretty much he's the one who actually asked Paula out, and of course she obliged. And so Lonnie Lincoln and Paula are also in like their science class as well. So Peter's frustrated, he's pissed. He's like, man, he's an athlete. What he got that I don't got? You know what I mean? And Nico just kind of writes a list of different things that that Lonnie has that he doesn't. And then we kind of see them, Lonnie, their class actually has a science project that's going on that they have to partner up to do. And Lonnie asked to partner with Peter. Peter was going to ask to partner with Paula, but unfortunately, he got to be quicker than that. And so we had Lonnie asked to partner with Peter, and then you see them kind of get to talking, and Peter sees that he's actually a really good guy. He's not a dumb jock. He's actually very intelligent, and he kind of just lets Peter know, like, that's why he wanted to work with him, because he's like, yo, I wanted to see how smart you really were. Paula said you were smart, so I'm trying to lock in and see what you're talking about. And then we get to the end of the school. We see end of the school day. We see Peter observing Lonnie and Paula kind of have their salutations, feeling the type of way low key. Then him and Lonnie have their salutations, and then they go their separate ways, and we follow Lonnie home and get to see part of his lifestyle, and we kind of get to see the world of New York from Lonnie's viewpoint, him being the star athlete but still having to deal with prejudices and different things in the world that are outside of his control. You can see that the cop was kind of like watching him as he walked home to make sure he didn't fit the description or wasn't wasn't doing nothing suspicious or whatever. And we see him on the train, and we see a lady kind of shooing her kid away from Lonnie, even though Lonnie didn't do anything. He was just sitting there just to himself, and he just looks at the kid and smiles, and then the old lady kind of shoos her kid away from him. And you kind of see just the picture that they're trying to paint, and just show you the different viewpoints that both Peter and Lonnie have, coming from different backgrounds. We see Lonnie get home, he greets his family, he proceeds to give information to his mother about her car, saying that he can work on it, so that way they won't have to take it to a shop. And he's gonna help his little brother with his homework after he takes out the trash. So you can see, like, Lonnie's a good kid. At the end of the day, he's a good kid, no matter how he's profiled, no matter how prejudiced people may feel. He's a good kid, and he's very helpful. And it's funny, we see we just kind of see that that viewpoint of them just kind of just showing that. I like how they did that. Like, they just really showed the viewpoint of life from two different characters' perspective, and we got to see both characters just kind of interact. And with episode 2, we kind of see Spider-Man just or Peter reenact pretty much the same scene. We see him putting up his Spider-Man gear after pretty much catching another assailant. somebody that was actually recording somebody putting in a passcode to their building, and looks like he was pretty much stalking the place so he could rob it later. And Spider-Man catches him, calls the police on him. Then we see he also drops off a criminal to an old, looks like a food bank sort of thing, that the lady had snatched the money and ran, and she ends up coming back and apologizing because Spider-Man had her tied up. And the shop owner was just like, oh, thank you, Spider-Man, I appreciate you. Hopefully she learned her lesson. And you can kind of see Spider-Man being compassionate even to the villains, or the people that he's pretty much tying up after they commit crimes and stuff like that. And that was interesting as well. So the shop owner got his money back. The woman kind of went on her way after apologizing profusely, and the shop owner gave him a pizza to take home with him. So he takes the pizza home with him, and we see he gets to right around back where the crib is, and we see him putting his stuff away. He finds a DVD player on the dumpster. He's like, yo, somebody threw this away, this is brand new. And then follow that, he goes into the apartment, and we see the same sequence that happened in Civil War when he pretty much came home and attempted to it was either Civil War or Homecoming. I don't remember exactly which one, because they showed it in both of them, I feel like, but from different perspectives. So we pretty much see him leaving the elevator, going into his apartment and talking to Aunt May, and then turning around and seeing, lo and behold, guess who's in his living room? Not Tony Stark. It's actually Norman Osborn. And we see Norman Osborn offering Peter Parker an internship at Oscorp. And so, of course, Peter accepts it, asks if it's paid. And Norman's just like, yeah, we'll work all that out when you come tomorrow after school. And so we see Peter get to school the next day, and of course he's greeted by Lonnie and their team doing like their ritual before games, and they're like rubbing a trophy for good luck or whatever. So they have Pete rub the trophy for good luck, and they all surround them, and it's a whole thing. And then he's like, yo, you got to come to the game. And he's like, I can swing through for a little bit, but I can't be late to my internship. And then we see him pretty much tell Nico and Paula about everything that transpired as far as him getting the internship and everything. And then we pretty much see him go to the game. We see Lonnie, star football player. Couldn't tell if he was a quarterback, running back, or what position he was in, because he ran for a touchdown after catching the ball, but also he threw the ball. So I'm like, is he a quarterback? Is he a wide receiver? Is he a running back? What we doing, Lonnie? What we doing? What position you play? What position you play? Because first of all, his number is 36. That's nasty work if you're a quarterback and your number 36. That's crazy. Anyway, that's crazy. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'll be noticing random things. But Peter ends up dipping out because he realizes he's almost late for his internship. He ends up getting there 2 minutes early, but ends up still being late because they said he was supposed to be there 15 minutes early to fill out some paperwork and get his picture taken for his ID. He was like, well, nobody told me that. And they was just like, yeah, we ain't trying to hear that. They take his picture. He looked goofy. Then they send him upstairs to the lab where everybody's going to be at. We have Asha, which is a young scientist from Wakanda, and we have Amadeus Cho making an appearance, and we have I believe the other scientist's name was Joaquin. I believe that was her name. I could be wrong. And it was 4 of them in there. We see Dr. Whitman come in there and just pretty much give them the rundown of what they're going to be doing, and seeing what department is going to pretty much be willing to accept each applicant based on the skills that they show. And so everybody gets selected. Of course, Peter wanted to be a part of the robotics division. Amadeus Cho ended up getting it instead. And then we see Peter getting selected to work with Doc Connors. And because this is the multiverse, and because of what they're doing, Doc Connors is a woman now. She's a woman of color. So it's Carla Connors instead of Kurt Connors. And so which I don't really care. It's the multiverse, so it is what it is. This isn't the main 616. This is their iteration of the multiverse in this universe. We started with Doctor Strange fighting the Venom creature. Like, come on, guys. This isn't going to be a one-on-one adaptation of the MCU and their main timeline. It's the multiverse, guys. What are we talking about? But anyway, so he works with Carla Connors. They end up doing whatever they're doing. We don't really get to see the extreme measures of what they're doing or whatever. But we see they take a 15-minute break. He gets a message from Nico. The football team won the game, and they're headed to a party. So of course he gets invited to the party. And Peter's like, all right, well, if we can finish things at the office, I can go ahead and head out, go to the party. And so of course that made Nico happy. And then we see him hang up the phone, go out in the main area. He sees the rest of the crew out there, as far as the scientists that he was working with that day. So he goes out there, they're talking to him. Amadeus Cho is running his mouth. They're sick of Amadeus. So turn on the TV, turn on the news, and Peter's like, wait, don't change it. And we see a fire breaking out at a building up the street. It's like 2 blocks over. So Peter's like, I got some time. And so he puts on he goes in the stairwell of all places, like they ain't got cameras there, and puts on his Spider-Man fit, goes and tries to save the people in the building, finds the arsonist who started the fire in there, and he was just like, I made sure that the building was empty before I started this fire. So Spider-Man was like, oh, thanks for that. Now I can just beat you up and subdue you for the cops. And so that's pretty much what he does as he continues to talk to the villain, because of course it's Spider-Man, he's going to be wisecracking the whole time. And it was just interesting to see that dynamic. And he ends up subduing him. But through the process, the dude thought he was on 52nd Street. He was actually on 51st Street. So he was setting the whole wrong building on fire in the first place. But he was doing this. He was hired by pretty much some rich consulting group that wanted to build high rises in the area. So they hired him to burn down the building so they can buy the land for cheap and build high rises. And surprise, surprise, he ended up pretty much starting a massive fire there. But Spider-Man was able to subdue him. He gets back to the office, almost gets in trouble, almost gets caught because he comes back late, and Mr. Whitman, or Dr. Whitman, is just pretty much frustrated with him, and Doc Connors tries to cover for him. He comes back, and then security comes in right after he comes back, and is like, yo, Norman Osborn, Mr. Osborn wants to see you. And Dr. Whitman's like, oh, he wants to see me? He's like, nah, that dude, little Peter. So he sends Peter up to the office to talk to Norman Osborn. As soon as he gets in there, he is pretty much like, yo, like, I know I messed up. He thinks he's about to get fired, so he's pleading his case. And then Norman Osborn just looks at him, flips his computer monitor around, and he's like, so you're Spider-Man. And that's pretty much where the episode ends for episode 2. So episode 1 and episode 2, I'll give it. Episode 1 was kind of a slow start, but once I like kind of how it developed and showed its character. Once we switched to Lonnie's perspective, I thought that was pretty cool. So for episode 1, I'll probably give it like a 7. Episode 2, I give it like a 7.5. I feel like they picked it up in episode 2 a little bit, just showing more of the world. You feel me? We got introduced to Coleman Domingo as Norman Osborn. Coleman always makes a great villain. We all know Norman Osborn's not necessarily a superhero, but he's definitely one of Spider-Man's biggest villains. So it's going to be interesting to see Coleman play this role out. And I know a lot of people have made comments and concerns about the whole race swap thing. I don't mind it as long as the race of the character wasn't, as long as the character's race wasn't super tied to their identity. So like Black Panther, his race is tied to his identity. Like T'Challa is an African from Wakanda. You can't really switch him out with a white dude or with a Hispanic dude. That just, it's not gonna work. You're not an African from Wakanda. Like that's not that's not how that works. But people like a Norman Osborn, their race isn't tied to their identity, so it really don't matter. It's more his wealth and his mentality as a scientist that's tied to his identity than it is his race. So I don't mind the whole race swapping thing, especially when it looks like they're standing 10 toes on this being a multiversal depiction of Spider-Man. So I'm not mad at that. They're telling their own unique story while showing similarities to what happened in the MCU, but showing you also how it's super different. So I kind of like that. They're diving deep into the multiverse concept of it, and I appreciate that. I do like the fact that they're adding newer characters like Nico into the lore. We got to see Doctor Strange in a Venom-esque type of character. I thought that was cool. I'm interested to see how this story develops. Now, my biggest gripe about this entire thing has nothing to do with the story at all. It's the 3D animation. I can't stand it, man. I can't stand it. It looks so weird to me. It's off-putting. It just looks wonky in certain parts, especially like the action sequences. It just looks weird. It looks like everybody's moving in slow-mo, and then if you look in the background, you got some people animated in 2D animation, but everybody in the forefront that's moving is animated in 3D animation. It just looks weird when you could have just did everything in 2D animation and possibly saved yourself some money. And it would have looked way cleaner and crisper, because I like the style. I like the art style as far as like the way they style and designed these characters. Like the hairstyles, the fits, the overall designs of everybody I really enjoyed. But the whole 3D animation aspect of it just makes the designs look wonky in motion, and that is so off-putting to me. It just feels weird, and I don't like it. Like, first of all, we live in a generation, it's 2025. People love anime. People love 2D animation. Fam. Fam. You've had several iterations of Spider-Man in the cartoon universe. Majority of them that have done well were the ones in 2D animation. Yeah, you might have a 3D animated sequence in the 2D animation show, but the basis of the animation was 2D. Bring back 2D animation, man. These designs and these character designs will look super clean if it was 2D animation, because you could tell they're going for like a comic booky type of feel, which I appreciate. I think it's dope. I think it's great what they're building and what they're trying to do. But when you have animated series like an Arcane League of Legends, whose animation is top tier and it's 3D animation, a Blue-Eyed Samurai, whose animation is top tier and it's 3D animation, Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, where granted that's a movie, so they have the budget for that, of making it top tier like that, but still it's top tier and it's animated well. When you don't meet the top tier mark, it just feels off. And there was a scene where they were at a party and you can see it's two people specifically sitting on the steps that are in 2D. Everybody else is in 3D animation and movement. And then you'll have some people in the background whose designs are a little less rendered than the others. And it's just like, bro, you could have just did 2D and we wouldn't have these issues. So that's my major complaint about this show. It's not the whole multiversal of it. I appreciate that part. I appreciate the stories that they're setting up and attempting to tell. And I'm interested to see where the story actually ends up going. But please go back to 2D animation. Please, for everybody's sake. Please go back to 2D animation. That's all I have. So let me know in the comments below how y'all feel about it. If y'all watched the first 2 episodes, they're out on Disney Plus right now. You can actually go check it out. And yeah, man, like, let me know if I'm tripping. Let me know if you agree with me. Let me know if you agree with my scores. Like I said, 7 for episode 1, 7.5 for episode 2. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with that, if you feel like I'm tripping. Yeah, if you agree with me on the 2D animation, bringing back that, let me know in the comments below, because the 3D animation, you gotta do it perfectly, otherwise it's just gonna look weird. Come on, man, we in 2025, we don't need stuff to look weird, we need it to look right. We got Creature Commandos and Invincible all with 2D animation that are fire. That are fire. Like, Creature Commandos was dope. and it was 2D. And it did have some 3D animated sequences, but it was for the most part 2D. And it did well. It was dope. It was a fun time. We don't always need, oh, let's do the 3D for what? What are we doing this for? But anyway, like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that way you can be notified anytime we drop a new video on the channel, which is every day. So stay tapped in, stay locked in. What If review is coming, guys. Just haven't done it, had a chance to sit down and do it yet. But it is on the way because we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to talk about. And I'm going to save what I was talking about earlier with the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe for the What If episode. We're going to talk about it. But never forget, it's free soul to the soul free. Let's get it.